Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have Harmeet Goindi with us. Harmeet is an engineer by education, teacher at heart, and financial tech entrepreneur by choice. He started his career with Wall Street, big banks, Banks of America, Credit Suisse. Unhappy with the state of financial tools for the average investor, Harmeet started whatstrading.com, the company which was acquired by Chicago Board of Exchange, where he's the director of products strategies. It's a great pleasure to present Harmeet. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudesh. That was a very nice introduction. So hello, folks. I see a lot of people today. This, I think, is more popular than when I presented how to make chicken curry. It seems it's a hot topic. So what I'll do today is try to explain what cryptocurrencies are. I will cover not only Bitcoin, but other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and Solana, NFTs and DeFi and all the names that you keep hearing. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a technical topic, so do interrupt me in the middle if you don't understand anything or have questions. If not, please put yourself on mute. So the question is why? Why should we talk about cryptocurrency, right? A cryptocurrency is right now a $3 trillion market. It's bigger than the GDP of India, UK, France. And soon in next decade, it's going to be bigger than US and China. It's adopted by banks, VCs, hedge fund, sports, now NBA Top Shots, that's an NFT. I think a few months ago, one of the NFTs of LeBron's dunk sold for $1 million. So it's going to replace traditional industries, and it's becoming mainstream now. So if you want to ignore, you are ignoring it at your own peril. But this is not why I am interested in this space. I'm interested in this space because of what is known as Web3. So what's happening is a new tech boom is happening in this space. It's called decentralized web or Web3. So initially when internet was formed, it was supposed to be decentralized. But what has happened is power has been concentrated within few companies, Apple, Google, Facebook. So every day you use iPhone, Google search, Facebook, you are paying these guys money. And so you've given up control to these authorities, right? And they collect rent in terms of money and your data. Web3 is a redesign and it's central authority resistant, right? Billions of dollars are pouring in this space right now in finance and real estate, art, collectibles. And the reason it all started is because of a concept called smart contract in Web3. Basically, computer contract, it's a computer program that replaces legal contract. So a programmer, for example, can implement the way legal contract, like an artist, say Lady Gaga, has with record labels, Spotify or radio, and that basically increases the efficiency and reduces cost, right? And this is now coming into governance. It's a beginning of a revolution called DAO, which stands for Decentralized Automated Organization. So I'm very excited about the future. So with that, let's just dive straight into the meat of it. So cryptocurrency stands for cryptographic currency, right? And I think we all have a basic understanding of what cryptography is and what currency is. By the way, money, it's a gas is a Pink Floyd reference. I guess I'm dating myself here. So what is cryptography? Cryptography is a secure communication in presence of adversaries. It's an age-old problem. Back in the days, or even now, when you want to send messages when you're spying or when during war, you want to send message to your allies, how do you do that? And this whole field has been studied and has been in existence since time immemorial. So back in the days in 7th century Greece, they used Cytail, right, for sending secure messages. So the way it would work is you would have a strip of leather and you will write your message in it, all right? And then you'll have to read or to write it, you would need the stick of a specific configuration. So when you write it on a leather of strip of leather, it reads this gibberish, right? IRYYAT, doesn't make any sense. But when you wrap it around the stick and you read across the stick, right, now it becomes a message. Message says, I am hurt, help me. Now, for this to work, both the sender and the receiver needs to have the same stick. And if you lose the stick, or if enemy has the stick, you are basically, you can't do this properly. The other encryption that that you have seen in the past are, the decoder ring, which we all used when we were kids. So we are talking about decoder rings, which we have used when we were kids. Big Latin, I'm sure many of you can read that. I will ask what I have written here. There's going to be a quiz at the end. And of course, the common shift, alphabet shift, so where D becomes A, E becomes B, right? And so what you need to do is you need to understand what the shift is, and the sender and the receiver can decrypt messages, right? But all of these encryption had a problem, a weakness, and that was called frequency distribution. So for example, in English alphabet, E is the most common letter, right? And so if you have substituted E with Q, Q will occur at a higher frequency, and you would know that Q is E, and you will be able to crack it. So this continued for a while, the state of encryption, and everything was breakable until we came to World War II, right? And we had what was known as the Enigma Machine. Now, this was developed in early 20th century. Lots of movies and TV has been made on this particular machine. And this was supposedly secure and uncrackable. It had 150 million combinations, right? And the best part about this machine was that, you have to set it up in a certain way. So you have these rotors, there are 3 rotors, you set them up, and there's these 20 switchboards. So you set it up in one particular way, and there are 150 million ways to set it up. But when you do that, you have a typewriter. And when you start typing messages, right, the light bulb lights up to tell you what to encrypt it with. So if you press A, a light bulb representing C will light up. When you press B, something else will light up. And the beauty was you press A 5 times, you get 5 different letters, right? So press A, you get Q, you press A again, you get R, and so on and so forth. So the frequency attack was not possible. So this was the most secure machine. I think even now, it's I think is another very secure machine, but it was cracked. And I think there's a movie called Imitation Games where they tell you how it was cracked. But the weakness was not the machine. The weakness was what is known as the cryptography that was used. It was called the symmetric key cryptography. So in a sense, both the sender and the receiver needed to have the same setting of the machine. And that setting would change occasionally. And when it changed, it had to be transmitted to all the people. And when it was transmitted, it was captured by allies. And that's how they cracked these machines. Not the technology, but the people that were the weak link. So this basically is what we call a symmetric key cryptography, wherein a person who is sending a message encrypts it in a key, and the person who wants to read the message has to use the same key. This, again, as you have seen, has certain weaknesses, but there was a solution that solved this problem, and that is known as asymmetric cryptography. And the way this one works, right now, this is a bit technical, so I'll try to be slow here. So Alice is someone who wants to encrypt the message. What she will do is she will broadcast her public key, right? You will take that public key and encrypt the message and send it to Alice. The beauty of this encryption is that once it's encrypted, and I would be able to read the message, but I won't be able to decrypt it with the public key. I need Alice's private key, which only Alice has, right? So if you want to take it back in World War II, if they had this, the way it would work is in German radio would broadcast the public key, and everyone who wants to send a message would encrypt with that public key and send it back. They can even broadcast it back on the radio, and allies would message will have no way to decrypt it. So it's a good thing that it didn't exist then. We will talk about this a little bit in detail, a little bit. Actually, you know what? Let's just do it right now. It would make more sense. So when you go to your bank, chase.com, right? You see an icon, a lock icon on the browser. So when you click there, right, you can see the details. It tells you, what it tells you is that this website is secure that it is actually chase.com, right? And this certificate also sends you a public key, right? So your browser will take that public key, and when you write your username and password, the browser will encrypt that username password, the public key, and send it back to Chase card, to credit card company, in this case, chase.com. Along with that, it will also send you your public key, so that when Chase is going to send you your data, account information, it encrypts it with your public key. So basically, Chase is sending you your public key, and you're sending Chase your public key, and then that's how the encryption happens. Now, all of this thing is, of course, transparent to you because it's taken care by browser, right? But this signature verification, wherein you see that, okay, this website is indeed chase.com, and this encryption is the underpinning of cryptography and cryptocurrency, right? So let's leave this aside for now, and let's just go back to the second part of cryptocurrency, money. So what is money, right? Money, I think we take it for granted, but money actually is three different things right now. The concept of money, it's a medium of exchange. When you buy stuff at Starbucks or you go and buy groceries, it's a store of value. It tells you how much, when you see money you have in your account, it's basically telling you how much value you have locked in bank account. And it's also a unit of account. So when you do your taxes, you basically are doing accounting using the same money. So money is a social construct. It's about 10,000 years old. In some places, languages were developed to handle accounting, not for communication, but for accounting. So that's how, I guess, important money is in our society. It's, of course, used for barter and ledger, but what is not known is whether barter system started the concept of money, or was it the ledger system that started the concept of money? Still unknown, but it did help the development of civilization, and it makes the world go round. In history of money, one thing that was very interesting is it's people and civilizations have used different things for money. So in Ethiopia, for example, they used salt bars, and that is the origin of the word salary, right? Salt bars, because people would be paid in salt bars. In Nigeria, you use cowrie shells, right? In England, you had tally sticks. And then in the island of Yap in Micronesia, they used these Yap stones. And these Yap stones were huge, like, thousands of pounds. And they were not used for actually transaction, but more as a store of value and accounting. But one thing that was all common in that is that society decided that this is what the currency would be, money would be. And in these places, these things were rare. So salt was rare in Ethiopia, and the stones were rare in this island. And again, shells were rare in Nigeria. And that's what they use for exchanging values. However, when Europeans came to these islands, they realized the value that these sort of commodities hold, and they debased the currency. So they got a lot of salt, and they took a lot of money from Ethiopia, and the currency was debased in Ethiopia. Same with Nigeria. An interesting thing about the stone is that there was a next island next to Rai, where they had abundance of the stone. So sailors came, took the stone from that island, brought it to Rai, and then debased the currency. And then, of course, you have seen pictures of gold coins. They have been used in past in various civilizations, in various forms as currencies: bronze, copper, silver, gold. And then, of course, paper. Paper are easier to carry. And the first paper note, I think, was in China 800 years ago. It was a promissory note it was actually a receipt for, I think, grain deposits. So with time, what we have realized is the money should have certain properties. It should be durable, portable, divisible, acceptable, right? So as you see, the stone, rice stone, did not have some of the property. You couldn't divide it. And of course, it was not portable. Same with gold coins. You couldn't really divide a gold coin. But anyways, there's nothing inherently special about these coins. What mattered was that society and economy sort of accepted it. So it was a social and economic construct. That's what money has been, which brings us back to the current state of affair of fiat currencies. Fiat currencies are what you and I sort of know about, which is what we call money. dollars in US, pounds in London, euros in Europe. Of course, it satisfies all the properties. They are durable, portable, divisible, right? They're accepted for taxes, and they are notes for legal tenders. And they are the big thing is that they are integrated into our fractional banking system. And things were, fine going along. We all use these notes. They were sometimes pegged to the gold, sometimes not. That's fine. But nothing really changed till the advent of internet. And when internet came, when things moved online, and then what we saw was that money had become electronic. So, when was the last time you went to a bank? I haven't been to a bank in months, right? I pay my bill by electronically. I use credit card, Venmo when I have to send some money. So in fact, in many countries, they're becoming cashless completely. Sweden, I think, is completely cashless or almost there. And in New York also, in some of the restaurants, you can't pay cash. I think legally they can't do that, but they're trying to pass laws to sort of solve that problem. So yeah, and now of course, PayPal, Apple Pay, and Alipay is Chinese PayPal. I think it has almost 1 billion users. But one company that's very interesting in this space is M-Pesa. I don't think you've heard of it. It's in Kenya. It's a mobile provider in Kenya. And in Kenya, what was the problem was people were not banked. They didn't have access to bank account, but everyone had a phone, and they would go and charge their phone with minutes. So they'll give $10 or whatever the currency is and get 100 minutes. And then they would use these minutes to barter. So I would say, hey, give me that apple and I'll give you 5 minutes. And then what became is M-Pesa basically became a bank more than a mobile provider. Right now it has 20 million customers, and I think it got a banking license. So this M-Pesa minutes are an example of currency, a digital money that was not issued by a bank and widely used and widely successful. So all these are success stories, right? Big companies making a lot of money, but they have one feature common, and that is that they are centralized. There is a central authority. So in PayPal, for example, when you are transferring money, you say, hey, I want to send money to Reebok or Nike to buy a shoe. PayPal will go and see if you have that money in your account. And if it does, it will take it and pass it on to the merchant, right? And when it does that, it collects rent. It takes, a fees, 2%, I think, is current PayPal fees. So in all of these cases, it's centralized, and the central authority makes sure that the transaction is valid, happens, and takes fees because of the service it provides. But there is no decentralized way of doing it. That there had been attempts, and if looks as starting from late 80s to 90s, there have been a lot of attempts to make a digital cash that is sort of not centralized, but they all failed. They all failed because of lots of reasons. The biggest thing was double spending, right? So how do you prevent someone from spending the money he has twice? If I have $10, I can spend the $10, many times, and there was no good way of preventing that. So in PayPal, for example, PayPal will prevent it, right? They'll check, but to do it in a decentralized way was very, very hard. Up until 2008. In 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto, right? So this is a pseudonym. I think people think that there are a group of people behind this name, a group of people behind Bitcoin. No one knows, and I don't think no one will ever know. But Satoshi Nakamoto published a message on Newsgroup in 2008. And he said, I've been working on a new electronic cash system that's fully peer-to-peer with no trusted third party. He put the paper on this website. It's still there. It's a paper that's just 8 pages long. I think you should all go and read it. It's easy read, and you'll understand almost all of it. And then he referenced 8 papers in his paper. And if you go and look back, many of the people in this decentralized whatever phenomena were referenced by his paper. So Wei Dai, Nick Szabo, Adam Back. And Stuart Haber is mentioned thrice. There's a very interesting story about Stuart Haber. If we have time, we will go deeper into that. So anyways, 2008, he publishes a paper and launches Bitcoin, right? And that starts the whole crypto revolution. So what is Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin actually is simply nothing but a ledger or a log or a blockchain of transactions. So that you can only append. So you have a transaction, you just add it to a log. Second transaction, add it to a log. Third transaction, you add it to this log, but you can't delete anything. You can just append, and you can't cancel anything, right? And you keep on appending, and what you get in the end is all these transactions make up a database, an auditable database that you can go back in history and check the whole transaction off. So what I mean is, like, if I have 100 Bitcoins, I give 10 to you, 10 to Alice, 10 to Bob, and then I don't do anything, and then I try to send again 100 to someone else. It will be stopped because all my transactions are on this database, and you would know, hey, you're trying to send something you don't have, right? So that's all it is. It is just a log of all the transactions. Now, the beauty is, of course, they are all cryptographically secure, they are digital signature, and they are tamper-proof. So let's just go a little bit deeper into how a blockchain looks like, right? So as I said, it is append only log. So and it's stored as a block of 1 megabyte, right? So if you look at first block, right, it has some transactions. I give money to John, John gave money to Bob, Bob gave money to Alice, right? And then you have when the number of transactions exceeds a certain amount, about 1400 or 2000 in Bitcoin, you make a next block, right? And these blocks are linked together. Right? They are linked together by something known as hash, right? So block 2 will have a hash of block 1, and block 3 will have a hash of block 2. And this is how you know that block 2 comes after 1 and block 3 comes after 2. So this is the timestamp part of it, right? And calculating the hash is what is known as mining. It's a very complicated mathematical problem you're trying to solve. Calculating a hash of, for example, 1 would take, let's say 2 would require taking all the transactions and the hash of 1 and a lot of other things, and then you calculate a hash, right? This concept actually is called mining. But for our purposes, all you need to know is a blockchain is nothing but timestamped transactions, right? And they live on nodes, right? So all the nodes are nothing but computers. You can go today for download Bitcoin in your computer, and you can become a node. And what a node has is just this ledger of all the transactions. That's all it has, right? So they're all connected. Well, not directly, but every node can reach every other node with 6 hops, which is very similar to Kevin Bacon's 6 degrees of separation. So when you do a transaction on one node, it trickles down to all the other nodes, right? And now, so then the question is, what is a transaction, right? So in a Bitcoin, when you think of a transaction, think of it as a check. That's a very sort of analogous to check in our day-to-day activity. So when you write a check, right, you write you have to write who you are paying, you have to put the date in, you have to sign it, and you put the amount in, right? So in cryptography, in Bitcoin transaction, it's the same concept. So your account is your wallet. Account number is called wallet in Bitcoins, right? In crypto world. So that's in a transaction, you'll have your wallet information. Then who are you paying to, right? John is paying to Bob. So you're going to write Bob's name here. In case of crypto, you write in his wallet's address, right? Account number. So wallet is an account number. So basically write account number. You timestamp it, which block on the blockchain. You write the amount of Bitcoins you're giving, and you write signature. Now, these are digital signatures. So when you sign it, right, the miners or the nodes know that, yes, this it is John's check, and this signature does belong to John, and this wallet is John's, right? So that's what the nodes do. And that's it. And your transaction happens. So more concretely, here is a check, is a transaction. John is sending Bob, you send to a node, right? So node gets this transaction, right? And what would node do? Node will go and look at all the transaction that has happened in the past, right? And it'll look at from 1 to, let's say this transaction is transaction number 11. So it'll look at all the transactions in the past up to 10, right? And see, hey, does John have the money he's sending Bob? So we'll look from all the transactions, say, yes, I see that John has the money, right? And then we'll see, is Bob's wallet a real wallet? And yes, it's a real wallet. Is the signature valid? Yes, it's a valid signature. And when all of these conditions are satisfied, it'll say this is a valid transaction, and he will put the transaction in the blockchain, right? And then it'll move on and on. Right now, so this this is block 1, block 2, block 3. In Bitcoin, there are about 2,000 transactions in a block, and right now we are at block number 729,000 in Bitcoin. One block is added every 10 minutes. Right, but because this check happens, right, you prevent the problem of double spending, right? So I think that problem of double spending needs a little bit more sort of looking into. So let me give you a simple example. Let's say Bob has only 10 Bitcoin in his account, and he is mischievous. So what he does, he sends 10 to John, and he sends that transaction to a node on one side of the world. And he sends 10 to Alice, and he transmits to a node on the other side of the world, node C, right? So the node A has only one transaction, which is Bob to John. Node C has the other transaction, Bob to Alice, right? And it takes time for the the propagation to happen from A to B to C. So, and node B probably will have both the transactions. Right? So how does it look like? So this is how the state of blockchain look like in node's point of view. So node A is going to have a transaction of Bob to John. Node C will have from Bob to Alice, and node B will have both the transactions, right? Now what I'm trying to show is how this is prevented in Bitcoins and cryptocurrency world. So node A is going to see, hey, look, I know Bob had, node A will say, when I look back into these transactions, I see that Bob had 10 Bitcoins. So yes, he can send 10 to John. So it's a valid transaction. Node C will say the same thing. I know Bob had 10, and I know he can send 10 to Alice, because node C doesn't know about Bob to John transaction, right? But node B knows about both the transaction, and what it's going to do is going to drop this transaction. It'll say, hey, look, you can't send $10 to both of them, or 10 Bitcoins to both of them. I'm going to drop this transaction, right? And it's going to do that. So now each node has only one transaction, right? Either Bob. So node A has Bob to John, node B has Bob to John, and node C has Bob to Alice. So now what happens? Now all of these nodes start calculating what is known as a hash, which is known as mining, right? They just spend mathematical and computational power calculating some number that doesn't mean anything, but it is needed for this particular reason. So keep doing that, and whoever does it first gets to write the block. So let's say if node A finds the hash first, then this is the official transaction, Bob to John. Node B wins first, this is the official transaction. If node C wins, then Bob to Alice is the official transaction. But no matter who wins, Bob can only spend money once, not twice, right? This is how problem of double spending was solved by Satoshi. And miners do all this work. They maintain the whole ledger. They make sure that transactions are valid, and then they do this double spending solution. And so they get rewarded for it. So the person who was able to find the block first and append to the ledger gets a reward for doing it, right? Right now, the reward is 6.5 Bitcoins, which is about $280,000. And that is given every 10 minutes. This is what is Bitcoin mining, right? So when people say, hey, I'm a miner, that's what you're doing. You're calculating, you're taking the transaction, making sure they're fine, and you're calculating the hash. And whoever calculates the hash first, right, gets to write that block on the blockchain and get $250,000. I'm going to stop here because I know this was a lot of information. So I'll stop here for questions, and then we will continue on further. Any questions? I think everyone is on mute. If you have a question, you have to unmute yourself. All right then. So
I've got one.
sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so you hear so much in the news about mining requiring tremendous amounts of energy and power,
Yes.
and I wasn't sure why that was.
So I hope okay. So I hope you know why that is, and if you have time, I can walk you through an example. But so when you have this pool of transactions, right, you need to calculate a hash for it. The reason you want to calculate hash for it is to prevent what is known as Byzantine fault tolerance problem, right? So we can talk about it later, but the beauty of Bitcoin network is the mining part. You have to spend computational power to calculate hash. It doesn't serve any purpose. It's basically you're just using calculator and just keeping on, adding numbers, right? But you have to keep doing that till you reach a certain particular number that begins with zeros. And yes, doing that takes up lots of energy. I think energy as much as the country of Sweden uses. But this is the when you think of a traditional payment gateway like PayPal or Visa, they spend a lot of money on their servers, right? Powering it. This is Bitcoin's version of basically spending energy for powering their servers. And then this is a problem of Bitcoin, which has been solved by other blockchains. So we'll talk about that next. But yes, mining is important, but it's absolutely useless because it doesn't serve any purpose other than just making sure Bitcoin is running properly.
Yeah, I have a question, please.
Yes.
Yeah. Why would I want to, or why would someone want to deal in Bitcoins as opposed to, dollars or the pound or the euro?
Yes.
What is the advantage?
That was the next slide. That's a good lead. So there are many reasons to use Bitcoin, right? One is fiat currencies have instability associated with the unsound policy. So if you look at Zimbabwe and Venezuela, right, they are using bad policies and the currency has caused a lot of economic problems. And even here in US, you saw what happened in 2008 and you're seeing what's happening now with inflation. So there is a crisis and instability, and a lot of it had to do with the federal policies, political environment, global geopolitical situation with the war right now, COVID, right? So it causes, there is instability there. And then the centralized parties, right, they concentrate risk and rent. So if for example, when Lehman crisis happened, the risk was concentrated in Lehman, and that caused recession for us for many years. And then, of course, there is the counterparty risk, right? If you remember the banks in Iceland, they were cooking the books and people had to pay the cost. And the biggest problem is the financial inclusion. So 2 billion of the world's population is unbanked. Remember, we talked about M-Pesa, the minutes people were using in Kenya as currency. I mean, they had to resort to minutes because they didn't have bank, right? That's the situation right now in many parts of the world. Even in US, millions of people are unbanked. So how do you bring banking to them? It's hard to bring banking, but everyone has a phone. So if you have a phone, you have access to Bitcoin. You can go and download it today and start using it. So these are the reason why I would want to use Bitcoin. But there are lots of disadvantages also, right? One is that it only can do 7 transactions per second. As we saw, it does about 2,000 transactions every 10 minutes, right? Visa, MasterCard, they do thousands of transactions per second. And the transaction can take hours to finalize. So imagine you go to buy a Starbucks coffee, you pay money through Bitcoin, you wait for 5 hours for your payment to clear. And then transaction cost also is high. I remember when I was using, I once paid $120 for a transaction, right? So imagine buying Starbucks coffee for $2 and paying $60 for transaction, right? So that wouldn't work. And as Julie pointed out earlier, energy, it uses a lot of energy, which is a waste. There's no reason it should do that. Well, there is a reason why it does that, but I think it's a waste. And then there's the whole question of public policy and legal framework, right? People talk about how it can be used for money laundering, which it can't be, but because every transaction is in history. So it's a bad use case for money laundering. But there is, when you are doing dealing with money with PayPal and stuff, they send W-2 or 1099 or everything to the government, but that doesn't happen with Bitcoin. So there is a public policy legal issue that is sort of against Bitcoin. But many of these problems that we talk about has been solved. For example, there are other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum. I'm sure you must have heard of it. Solana, Avalanche. They don't have these problems, or some of them don't have these problems. For example, Solana can do 50,000 transactions per second, which is much more than MasterCard or Visa. And the transaction cost is like fraction of a penny. So it's less than what you pay when you do PayPal or credit card transaction. And again, it takes less than a second to clear. So when you go and pay money when you buy something, right, and you put in your card, it takes 3-4 seconds. This one clears in 400 milliseconds. But more importantly, it has no mining. So it doesn't use mining. It doesn't do the hash thing. It uses something known as proof of stake. Bitcoin uses what is known as proof of work, which is all hashing. This is a proof of stake. So there's no mining. This particular Solana particularly is carbon neutral. Similarly, Avalanche is another cryptocurrency. They also have all the good things and things that Bitcoin lacks. But all of them have something that Bitcoin did not, right? And that is why lots of applications are being built on top of that. And the thing that they have that Bitcoin did not was is called smart contract. So what is a smart contract, right? I think this is an important concept, and you should probably know this. So smart contract was started by Ethereum. Ethereum is, or Ether is the second most popular chain, or the most popular chain, depending on how you measure it. When you hear of NFTs, almost all of them are exclusively on Ethereum, not on Bitcoin chain. So it was launched after Bitcoin. It's similar in many ways, but it added a concept of smart contract. So what is a smart contract? So coming back to the check, right? It's similar to Bitcoin, right? You have wallets, you have signature, you have timestamp, everything is the same. Of course, instead of Bitcoin, you pay in Ethereum. But what extra thing you have is a smart contract. So in a check, you can write, why is this check for? So in the for section, you can write certain things, which you couldn't do in Bitcoin, but in Ether you can. So I can say, I will pay Bob. So this is a check to Bob for 8 Ether, but it'll only be paid next year, or it'll only be paid if the price of Ethereum is over $5,000. Now this concept of smart contract ushered a new era of I guess web, and this is what I was referring to in my first slide. It ushered an era of decentralized web, also known as Web3. So what can happen with this smart contract? What has happened with the smart contract? Decentralized finance, right? So lending, for example, or trading. So I can say that I can loan you 10 Ether now if you pay me back 11 next month. That can be written in that smart contract. Or you can have a very complicated contract involving 3 people. I'll pay Alice, Alice will pay Bob, Bob will pay John. And it'll happen when XYZ happens. And so this is a tri-party agreement, very complicated financial thing, but now it can be done via code. And the best part about these smart contracts is you don't need a lawyer, and no one can run it, because it's a program that will execute automatically no matter what, right? So you can't say, hey, I'm not going to pay you $11. You can't do that. It will happen. Another example is in music, in streaming, right? So right now, when you go to Spotify, you listen to a song, Spotify says, hey, I've listened to a song. I think I owe this record label this much money. Maybe there's a bug in Spotify code, who knows, right? But if it is on smart contract, money will automatically go to the artist. You don't need record labels, you don't need lawyers, right? So imagine the money you save and the rent collectors, rent seekers you remove from the ecosystem. And then in arts and digital collections, right? So you can sell a painting to someone for some amount of money, but you can write in the contract that if you send my painting for a profit, I get a part of it. So when Monet sold his painting for $10,000, which 50 years later sold for $100 million, he got nothing out of it. But if he had done this on NFT in a smart contract, he could have said, hey, whatever profit you make, I keep 10%. So when the painting sold for 100 million, Monet could have got 10 million. So that's fair. So it's in some ways better for the artist. And it's being used a lot in sports now. A lot of tickets in Europe in soccer, they're using NFTs to sort of sell tickets. NBA Top Shots, which we mentioned, which we'll talk about later too, is a place where NFTs are being used a lot. So a little bit more into what an NFT is, right? So we talked about smart contract, right? NFT is nothing, it's very similar. Think of it as a receipt, right? So in the smart contract, what you want to do is just say, hey, this painting is a part of the smart contract. So if you remember 2 years ago, Beeple sold NFT of his painting for $63 million. So what he actually did is you had a contract and you put in the whole image inside the contract and you sold that transaction, right? So if you really want to think about it, NFT is nothing but a single crypto receipt representing the transaction or the ownership of that contract, right? So think of it as a receipt. That's all it is. So when you think NFT, think that I am talking about a receipt. So when you talk about NFT of an art, it's a receipt that you own the art, a digitally verifiable receipt. So it can't be copied. No one else can claim it because it's yours. You know, when you're talking about real paintings, you get experts, they validate the painting. Oh, it's real. Oh, it's not real. With NFTs, you don't need validation. It's on the chain, so you can just check. So a little bit more into NFT, how it is different from other sort of concepts in Web3. When you go to Web3 and you're trying, let's say you talk about a loan app, right? So you loan 10 Ether to someone so that you can get 11 back next month. This loan, you get a token or a receipt representing that you have given this loan. Now, because you're talking about money, it doesn't matter what specific token I get, right? All I care about is this token should say I should get 11 Ether next month, right? So this token in some sense, or this receipt in some sense is fungible. I can exchange my receipt with yours if it is similar, right? So that's why it's a fungible token. And art, which is only, you know, one-off, right? It's not fungible. I have a receipt saying that this receipt is for this art, and you have a receipt saying this receipt is for someone else's art. They're not fungible. We can't exchange it because they are two totally different things, right? And hence the name non-fungible tokens, because it's not fungible. So this is something that is gaining a lot of steam these days, this whole concept of NFTs, and people are trying to put tickets, baseball cards, music all into, and paintings all into the NFT space. So just to show you where the world is going, right? What are the Web3 crypto projects, NFT projects, right? So we talked about Spotify, right? There is a app called Audius. So it's similar to Spotify, but it's on chains. The money goes straight to the creators. You don't have to need licensing or any of such things, right? Then there is the trading platform called Uniswap. Again, it's decentralized. You can go and trade. It's bigger than NASDAQ and NYSE, right? It makes more money than them. I've probably never heard of it, but people trade on it more than they trade on the exchange that you know and heard of. Axie Infinity, I hope you've heard of it. It's a game, right? People, it's so popular that and so useful that it has brought many people out of poverty. In Philippines, there's an article, right? You can read about it in Forbes. In Philippines, people have left their job and they are playing Axie Infinity and making money. And it has lifted people out of poverty. And it's not just some money. The amount of money that has been made using Axie Infinity is over 4 billion with a B dollars. And then NFTs that we just talked about. So you go to OpenSea.com and you can look at all the NFTs that are very popular there. So you will see the name Bored Ape Yacht Club. So you must have heard of apes. There's nothing but a bunch of NFTs. CryptoPunks, again, nothing but bunch of NFTs, right? What are these? They're just paintings or art someone created, some artist created. In case of Club, it's a group of people create this art and now it's worth millions of dollars. Any reason it should be millions of dollars? I don't know. It is, right? And now you can use these NFT avatar as your avatar in Twitter. So it's coming into the mainstream. And of course, NBA Top Shots. We talked about it. Let me just show you the website. So you go to NBA Top Shots. It's by NBA. You can buy a pack for $9. It's a starter pack. You pay $9 and you get an NFT, right? Now, the common NFT, rare NFT, and if it is a NFT that's rare, you can go to OpenSea.com and just sell it for millions of dollars. So if you think about it, it's nothing but those baseball cards, right? But they are on blockchain, they are tamper-proof, and you cannot counterfeit it, and they are there forever. Right? And then the Decentralized, again, that is, if you have seen Ready Player One, it's bringing reality to metaverse. Facebook changed their name from Facebook to Meta. This is what they're going after: the NFTs and the whole decentralized land. So I hope that gave you an idea about where we are in this landscape and what the future holds. I'm going to stop here and see if you have any questions. Mary?
I kind of have a very basic question, really. We know that banks are regulated, currency is regulated, currencies fluctuate, the dollar to the euro.
Right.
So what is the fundamental, I'm going to use the word regulatory agency, or what kind of regulations are behind this to sustain it, number one, and to keep it from failing, number two?
So the answer is not very simple. So there is no, because it's decentralized, there is no authority behind it, right? But there is a Bitcoin foundation. But so the way it works is, you see this. So you have a blockchain, right? If you want to change, have some sort of add some amendments to it, you will need the majority, 51% of the people who own Bitcoin to accept. And when they do, you can make changes. So if you really want to think about it, it is pure democracy, right? So you'll vote on it, and if majority of people agree on a change, it will change. So there is no central authority. It's just the people who own Bitcoin. They decide. Yeah, and and what keeps it where it is just supply and demand. There is no, like with any other currency, like US dollar is valuable today because you and I use it. If today we say, you know what, we will not use US dollar for trading, we will use euros, US dollar will fall to zero. Nothing that government can do to sort of boost it up. So it's basically, as I said, money is a social construct. It has value as long as you and I think it has value.
Thank you.
But on the topic of governance, right? There is this new movement called DAOs, decentralized organization. What they do is it's same thing, right? You gather people, you have your own token, and then people who have 50%, and they decide what they need to do, and the majority sort of wins. One of the DAOs that came a few months ago pulled up money, and they wanted to buy a US Constitution. I think they pulled up over $50 million. They couldn't, they failed because they were outbid by Ken Griffins, the owner of Citadel, the hedge fund. He outbid them, but they could have. And that was, just a decentralized organization like Bitcoin. And there are many of them right now doing various things.
I just wanted to make a sort of a comment of that. I don't know that it feels like you didn't talk about any of the negatives in terms of the risks that are out there, and that if people don't truly understand what they're getting involved with, or where they're going to do what they're going to do, to buy, to trade, to store, why they're using it. I'm not sure, because I think you would agree that there are a lot of dangers in acting without information. And some of the items you brought up are particularly risky. Sort of, I'm wondering, what do you propose people do with the information you presented, I guess?
So one thing I would definitely tell people is not trade, right? So that's why, if you look, my first slide was why I like Bitcoin. It's the DeFi, the decentralized part of it, right? So the reason I didn't bring up, the whole wallet, the custody and all those things is because I don't think people should go in the market and start trading Bitcoin, right? And that's why I didn't bring up any of those things. Just because you mentioned it's risky, and if you are going into the decentralized space, you'll have to deal with MetaMask and Phantom Wallet, and that again is a whole mess that we don't want to get into. So yes, to your point, I didn't talk about it because I don't believe, I don't do it, and I don't think people, especially at this audience, people who are new to the space should be doing that. As you said, it's risky. It's highly volatile. For example, the Bitcoin, right? I mean, in past 1 year, it fluctuated from $70,000 to $25,000. It keeps on going up and on, up and on, up and on. It's not a place for people to invest money, unless you're a gambler, or you can read charts very well.
What do you see as the future of cryptocurrency?
Oh, we'll get to that. And Mike, also one thing, right? I didn't talk about its tax implication. So of crypto, and that is again a whole can of worms, which you probably know about. So yes, if you are dealing with crypto, people just go to Coinbase and maybe buy a coin here and there. But yeah, it's very risky. As far as future of crypto, so I don't. I wish I knew what it was, and I would be a billionaire because I will then invest accordingly. I don't know, right? I don't know, because there are a lot of risk factors here. The regulatory aspect of it, which crypto will stick around, I don't know. But I do believe that the Web3 or the smart contracts part of the crypto will live. And that would be another sort of tech revolution, like what happened in 2001, when you saw the rise of Google's and Amazon. They were not there before that, right? Apple, and now look at them, they're like multi-trillion-dollar companies. So there is going to be a company or companies that work on this Web3 world, and they will be the Apples and Googles of next decade. That I am sure of, as sure as I can be.
Thank you.
In case other folks don't know, I did post in the chat window. I'm not sure if you know how to open your chat window. Those of you who do, there are 2 articles in there that address the environment, and there is certainly, as the presenter mentioned, there's definitely concerns about it and a lot more that could be done, but there are also some factors in terms of the value of it and other industries that are similar or out there that do store value and transition of value that have downsides as well. I'm not arguing in favor necessarily, but just providing information to reflect on, to look at other industries and other items out there that also use environmental impact.
Yeah, I agree with you. The environmental impact is something that we really have to look at because it's.
So just a quick note about environmental impact, right? There are Bitcoin and Ethereum are the 2 big ones that use mining, but they're moving away from it, right? So Ether wants to move away from mining to what is known as proof of stake, where environmental impact is taken care of. Bitcoin is not going to do that. I think Bitcoin is going to stay the way it is for various reasons. But most of the blockchains, I think, are going to move away from proof of work to proof of stake. So environmental impact is mitigated. Solana, as I mentioned, is on the chain that I do like, is carbon neutral. You don't have the concept of mining. So yes, the crypto community realizes the mining and environmental aspects, and they are working to sort of mitigate it.
There was something, and I haven't read the article, but there was some news report, there was a segment on the oil companies drilling and the natural gas that escapes from the drilling. And now they're exploring the possibility of that natural gas being used to in the Bitcoin area. I don't know if you know anything about that, and I don't know much about it.
Right. So basically, the whole thing comes from the fact that to be profitable, right, and it all depends on the hash rate and the price of Bitcoin and so forth. But I think 3 cents or 4 cents per kilowatt hour, right? If you can get energy at that price point, then you can be profitable. Right? So the miners will go to wherever they can find energy for cheap. So if there is a gas that's a byproduct that's being sold for cheap, they'll go there. right? Because energy is the most expensive input in mining, and you can see the rewards of mining are like $250,000. So it's a very lucrative business, but you need cheap energy. So wherever you can find it.
Is it right that this money will be used by our grandchildren?
Cryptocurrency, I think they're being used right now. So many of us, when I've used it, as Michael mentioned, he has used it. So we use it for various reasons. They're being used right now. As I said, it's a $3 trillion business, right? So people use it right now. Lots of people use it right now.
My 12-year-old grandson is into Bitcoins.
Yeah.
He's 12 years old. So you're right, they're there.
The problem is the adoption, right? So for us, for normal people to use it, there is a curve of learning of tools. It's not there yet for mainstream use and for the risk. Because if you lose, for example, your key, you cannot retrieve your money. They're gone forever. No one can, right? So if you're in bank, if you forget your password, you can say, hey, give me my password back. They'll give you a password back. In Bitcoin crypto, if you lose your password, no one can give it back, and you are sort of done. So it's not yet ready for prime time. But if you want to use it, want to deal with it, going to go into it, I would recommend go to regulated entities like Coinbase and Gemini or Robinhood and start there. At least they will keep so if you forget your password, they can give it back to you.
I also think this year banks potentially by 2023 will be approved for what are called ETFs, exchange traded funds, that will hold either big companies that basically your banker is in my discussions with different investment bankers, there's clearly, and with the US government, there's clearly a shifting from Janet Yellen and the Federal Reserve, et cetera, not the Federal Reserve, but basically from the banking system, they are looking at ways of integrating it. They know that there are people who want to invest in it, but are overwhelmed, intimidated, and they want to provide a safe means, and they're gonna move on that. And legislation is in the works, and it looks to be fairly friendly to providing opportunities.
Actually, it's already there. So Baito, there are 3 ETFs that have already been launched a few months ago. Baito is one of them. So you can actually go and invest it yourself. Of course, the problem with ETF is they do not match the Bitcoin exactly, because they use futures. And so we don't, that's another whole different concept. So you'll always be lagging in the performance when you use these ETFs. But it's interesting you mentioned that, right? So Gary Gensler, who's now chair, he did a course in MIT in 2018 on Bitcoin. And I think you should go and listen to it. It's free in MIT. And many of the slides that I have posted here used material that he sort of taught. But he's now the chair of SEC. And so it's interesting to see what his point of view is. And he was not maximalist or minimalist. He was in the middle. He was like, yeah, Bitcoin has advantages and disadvantages, and he just wants to regulate it. So you will see more regulation coming.
If anyone else has a question, otherwise, I just want to say thank you so much, Harmeet. That was a very informative session. And I think we need more than one to understand. And I want to say thank you, everyone, for joining tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much.